All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. Um, Hope y'all enjoy y'all's day. I'm gonna get into some Diddy things, some Karen Reed, some Lori Vallow Daybell. Uh, Basically, we're gonna be here for a minute tonight, and trying to figure out what to start at, what to start. Okay, let's start with Karen Reed. Um, let's start with Karen Reed. We are. This is Karen Reed, day 30. Let's get into it.
Her four daughters would eventually all graduate from college. But over the years, Joan's youngest, Tracy, said something was missing.
So I felt like it was important for her to have that degree that she earned.
So last year, Tracy called the University of Maine and made her mother's case. Why did you want to do this for your mom?
It always made me kind of sad. I think that she'd done everything that she could do and that she wasn't able to get this degree.
The university looked into it and determined June did meet the student teaching requirement.
I think he said, Mom, you're going to be a graduate. We both graduated.
That day, this is more senior in history. At age 88, Joan became the oldest undergrad to receive a degree from the University of Maine.
After I got it, that whole so much. I felt like I was a finished person.
Thank you for the like. Thank you for the likes. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like what's like the content. If you enjoy the content, please like, share, subscribe, please. Please and thank you. Please and thank you.
John O'Keefe's injuries front and center with a medical expert on the stand in the Karen Reed trial, and the day was not without drama. Why fiery arguments erupted in the courtroom before a judge's ruling on the doctor's testimony. Tonight at 7. There's a reason Chevy is called the heartbeat of America. A heartbeat strong, steady, unwavering, like the people who keep this country moving. For them, only America's most dependable truck will do. In every
And this information for the Karen Reed case is coming from a local affiliate, NBC 10 Boston. Well, it's the affiliate, ladies and gentlemen.
truck, like every Chevy driver, dependability comes standard. Now get $6,500 total cash back. Trade in an eligible vehicle. That's 10% below MSRP. Visit your Midland Chevy News. You're watching NBC 10 Boston. News worthy of you. Tonight, the trial back on track. Days possibly in sight.
Kids maybe waiting to go to the jury Friday. Monday at the latest.
The defense calls its final witness. Michael Bruce's respect to me. Our agents are that it was inconsistent contact to the taillight. Plus, the question remains, what really happened to John O'Keefe?
If you look at any information that would tell you your pace, speed, like that, or everything else.
So, it doesn't matter.
Our panel weighs in on today's testimony. Kept confidential. The Karen Reed murder trial starts right now.
There have been 40 days of testimony, and today we learn we're about to enter the final stretch. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lacey Monahan.
And I'm Glenn Jones. Today, the defense called its final witness, another crash reconstruction expert from Markham. And the testimony from a forensic pathologist dominating the day. Let's get right out to our Melanie Mendez. Melanie, walk us through what happened in court today.
Well, Glenn, as you just mentioned, we heard from Dr. Elizabeth Lopasada. She is the former chief medical director of the state of Rhode Island. She served in that position for 12 years. She's now a professor at Brown University. Then, as you mentioned, they heard testimony from an engineer with ARCA, that's the crash reconstruction firm that was hired initially by the federal government. These two fields, very different, but their two conclusions very much the same. Take a look.
Thank you. She been saying what I've been thinking.
Dr. Andrew Rentschler, engineering from Argonne.
Likely did.
She been saying everything I've been thinking. Everything related to John O'Keefe. That was not a vehicle. Those marks are marks from a dog. I don't know why some people cannot understand that. The marks on John O'Keefe are dog bites.
Occurred as a result of contact, specifically with that tail light cover, the injuries that Mr. O'Keefe sustained on his right arm and didn't sustain would be inconsistent with actual interaction with the tail light.
Lopezada going injury by injury through the prosecution's theory that John O'Keefe was hit by Reed's SUV.
The laceration to Mr. Keith's upper eyelid that we just looked at consistent with a strike from that area of the vehicle as that vehicle were traveling over, saying 20 plus miles per hour.
No, that projectile rounded the area would not cause that skin defect. Multiple times, Dr. Lopezada telling the jury John O'Keefe died from brain injuries and blunt force trauma to the head, but said those injuries were not caused by falling on grassy or dirt ground, even if frozen, as the prosecution is contending.
Falling back onto that dirt, hard or not, that caused the pattern injury that you see, that we just saw in exhibit 160.
No. She cited hemorrhaging in O'Keefe's organs as being signs of hypothermia, but also said it could have instead been caused by a machine used for chest compressions. And that's exactly what Lopezada said today. Finally, the most debated part of her testimony.
Opinion as to whether or not the wounds that you see, the pattern injury that you see on Mr. Keith's right arm is consistent with animal marks.
Yes, it is. Very much. Lopezada stating the injuries to O'Keefe's arm were clearly still alive.
Mr. Keith's pattern injuries on his right arm do they correspond to injuries that could be produced by irregular fractured plastic pieces impacting his arm?
No, not at all.
Why do you say that?
Well, first of all, those injuries are pattern injuries from an animal, likely of the canines we have in its lifetime. So I'm going straight to most people's eyebrow. And new information to this trial, the testimony revealed a special dissection of John O'Keefe's leg was done to look for injuries from a bumper. None were found, and x-rays to his arm revealed the bones were 100% intact. Under cross-examination by Hank Brennan, the doctor stood firm in her findings. Asked whether she ever considered data in the case, like the speed Reed's SUV could have been moving. It did not hit him, so it was not relevant to my opinion. I could by looking at the body, I could tell that there was no evidence of impact with the vehicle. The defense's final witness is Dr. Andrew Rentschler. Ultimately, his results in line with what the jury heard from Dr. Lopezada as well.
It really wasn't possible to get a skull fracture by hitting the tail light and not sustain any other significant fractures.
And Dr. Rentschler will be back on the stand first thing tomorrow morning. Glad that you'll see that clear. All right, back with us tonight, our chief legal analyst, Michael Boyd, and former prosecutor Margaret McLean. Let's start with what happened before the jury entered the room and Dr. Lopezada took the stand. The defense made their argument that she does have a federal to determine what injuries are from dog bites. Take a listen.
These injuries on John O'Keefe's arm are from a dog. Period. Full stop. Anything else that presenting that to the jury at this point would be perpetrating an intentional fraud on this jury. She did not provide qualifications that she has a history of education or training on cognitive recognition analysis as it pertains to dog bites. Further regarding dog bites should not be permitted in this trial.
So Judge Canoni ultimately ruled that Dr. Lopezada would not be allowed to testify about dog bites, but as you heard earlier, she can say those abrasions are consistent with animal bites. This part of the decision.
I'll leave it at that. That's what I know.
In her experience, Mr. Jackson, you have to lay foundation in her experience seeing animal bites. This is consistent with what she was seeing in the animal bite.
All right, Michael, Margaret, who won on that round?
Well, in my opinion, at first, Jackson lost and Brennan won, but then it was reversed, and Brennan lost and Jackson won. Jackson was brilliant
jury will allow you to testify whether what caused those injuries and obviously what caused them. As Margaret mentioned, allowing Dr. Lapasada to testify about animal bites, not specifically dog bites, is a change from yesterday. Remember that the veterinary legal pathologist was not qualified to testify about dog bites. Here's her reason why.
I find that she was not qualified when satisfied with the dog requirements of the VA. Based on that, she cannot testify to a dog that's going to take
How is this woman not qualified?
Dr. Russell. I found that Dr. Russell
Like,
was
really?
an expert qualified to testify as to dog
How?
requirements, mainly from her experience in the ER, coupled with her being an MD. Dr. Lapasada does not have that experience.
I spoke with her right away. The judge got it slightly wrong the first time around. She cited dog requirements. What should we know about that? Whether to what you say might have been the wrong decision. Calvin says that all of the something of the death is actually something. That means that what we're testifying about has to be based on principles and science without science to penetrate to careful relating to that principle, and that it's been published in peer review. And that's the foundation of the path to author. And then show all of this when you testify about something testing. So it's going to be effectively the point here reinforces that when the judge wants to know how do you get
I hope you guys can hear it.
other animal bites. And I'm not sure how you differentiate a dog bite from a python or some other animal that has a teeth of that sort. And I think she didn't see here the foundation.
I wish Boston 10 had better audio.
So, Margaret, is this a case of like a judge is the one who can decide what is considered an expert?
Yes, ultimately, they have to hear from both sides, but it ultimately goes to the judge's decision as to whether to allow certain testimony or not.
But the other people in court are experts.
Right, yeah.
That's the whole point about value, as well as the point about the judge looking at the proposed expert has sufficient background, education, experience, and training. Some combination of those skills, such as the testimony, may be very interesting that. And I think that's the thoughts about our decisions, and it would make it corrected, and that may be what some of those as well. All right, we have this viewer question that we want to go to. Although I think for the most part we've answered this question, but we'll just put up the viewer question so that this viewer knows it's been addressed. How is the judge qualified to assess or deny a physician's qualification as an expert? I think we kind of covered that already.
And speaking of the defense, police are, which Dr. Lapasada section for broken bones, and the x-rays in his first trial. We opine as to why they're just coming out the second trial. I couldn't believe it.
I mean, I've followed this both trials, everything, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, x-rays, am I losing my mind?
It's going to be a little more problematic than just something that could be now. The expert testified that he didn't see any x-rays in both cases. And so now we're sure going to hear about that when we get into the cross-examination. And it would have been important to understand that the x-rays no bones were found as a result of the articulation of the vehicle or his impact in the case. So I'm surprised at that. I guess that, again, it's new evidence that we haven't seen before. But what was it? Two trials? How many weeks that means? But this is the test.
8 weeks.
Can we work on, with the prosecutor, work on a rebuttal witness then to say, it's something to come
I think that's just what we're going to see. And that's, I think that's what they've done this all along. That's been the part that they've been overcoming. Which one of my problems with taking
God, I hate this audio.
besides what
If y'all can't hear, I apologize for the audio. I'll find another way to give y'all better audio when it comes to the Karen Reed.
Yeah, remember, he's a crash reconstruction expert, a biochemical engineer from ARCA. He is the second ARCA witness to take the stand. The other was Dr. David Wolf.
said so at times in response to the elections. But because of that, what data do you have to support an message just how it works? It's why you see great defense attorneys like Hank Brandon and Brandon hire her as a case because she was pretty unshakable on the box.
Well, I mean, to the point that when Brendan was asking about the data, exactly, she said that was her data in the car ever hit her. And, you know, stop, that was it. That's a little too much. That's a little over the top, I think.
But the algorithms is the evidence of science to combat government science because, you know, that's what therapies look for now. We call it the CSI effect. They want to see that science that supports people. Here's my thing. Thanks very much for letting us think of this. We're talking about dog bites and how the Alberts family dog Bowie may not come into play in this trial. The conversation continues after a break.
But once again, we want to take a moment to remember the victim. In this case, Jonathan, he was also a police officer and Britain native. Much has been said about what a good friend and brother he was and how giving him a legal guardian at his niece and nephew after they lost both of their parents to illness. He was just 46 years old. You're watching
I use all kinds of professional lights to help me make my videos. But most of the time, I'm at my desk working. So what if,
Get the furniture you want and a great deal during Birdie and Phil's BOGO event. Buy any furniture item and get a second item of equal or lesser value at 30% off. Buy a sofa and get the love seat or chair for 30% off. Many items are even made right here in the USA. Need a new bedroom? Buy any item and, you guessed it, get a second item at 30% off. We even offer removal of your old furniture to make things stress-free. 30% off a second item for a limited time only at Birdie and Phil's.
Win one championship, you're celebrated. Win twice, they call you a hero. 3 times, they say words like legend and dynasty. But when you've won it all 7 times, the trophy speaks for itself. Introducing the full lineup of Ram trucks. Ram, 7-time Booker Trend Truck of the Year winner.
Right now, well-qualified Kern Chevrolet, GMC, and most Ford pickup owners are lessees can lease the 2025 Ram 1500 Big Road Crew Cab 4x4 for $419 a month. See your Boston area Ram dealer today.
Hi. Hi. Chocolate fundraiser.
With the Chase mobile app, things move a little more smoothly. Deposit checks easily and send money quickly. That's convenience from Chase. Make more of what's yours.
For great Toyota offers not seen on TV, you could type buyatoyota.com in your browser, or you could simply scan this QR code and give your fingers a break. Buyatoyota.com, Toyota's official website for deals. Toyota, let's go places.
Of the 1 in 10 passengers and residents who have unpaid money, 202,000
About the size of it.
Friendly face jurors who's always got a friendly face on. Not so friendly today for the very first time. It was like kind of beaten down and with his head down. And another note, I mean this to be completely generous and charitable. This is a young jury. Many of them have not had to sit without their phones, without their watches for a period of time. And I can only imagine how these extended sidewalks that are going for a long time, this local loitering for the most part, really getting on their nerves. You know, at one point, he said after, we're going to move along, this would be a quick sidewalk. And they laughed out loud. This has been a stoic jury, right? This is not what they've been doing. They laughed out loud like it's not going to be a quick sidewalk. Just us.
I think Dr. Lozada did as well. I think she might have been on the stand when that moment happened.
Right. There's a lot of talk today about ignorance about themselves, more specifically the possibility that an animal or even a dog could be raped. Early in the trial, the defense asked a couple of witnesses about Chloe, the Albert family dog of the Crown Valley instead. Ray Albert and his family 2022 in the Netherlands. Yes, the day was a dog's day. Chloe, what kind of dog was Chloe? German Shepherd. During the course of your investigation, did you also become aware of the family dog was coming from a family dog? Only that you were named the dog, yes. That's correct. And the rumors did not get that dog from Ryan to go out to the That's correct.
What I really like about the cloud lifter is it really brings the light into the preamp and makes it
That is correct. This brings us to a new question for Ben. With all of the talk about dog bites, if Ryan Albert isn't called to testify and the jury doesn't hear much, I haven't heard much about him. There may be questions about why dog bites were discussed so much. So Michael Ryan Albert did not testify for the defense, didn't testify for the prosecution either. He says in the last trial he only quoted, but this jury doesn't really know any of that. What's the risk? Is there any risk of not coming through the dots for the jury? So that maybe Chloe is responsible for the second ones from that world. Thank goodness it's on the call. But those dog bites didn't cause his death. So how do you connect with that? So I could see the jury sitting back there and discussing. So why do we care about the dog bites? If they're non-consequential other than the injuries that are caused by the dog, we don't care about the dogs or the animal bites. The prosecution with this is going to talk about the dog. He's going to say he has a mold of Chloe, and the prosecution is going to end up introducing the dog if they choose to the jury.
So it's a question.
Yeah,
It's a question from our viewers. We're reminded so much has happened that we've already forgotten. That Jennifer McKee talked about Chloe, that Sergeant Buchanan talked about Chloe. We had to remind ourselves that Chloe was injured.
even with all of that, it's what significance is it all if it's not the cause of death? Why do we care about all of these tangential things that we know about the first trial and never significance? These juries never even know because we are in defense's last witness today. And so I think a lot of this is still needed. I would hope that all this information in the air creates reason to doubt. I think so. But I don't see how they end up connecting all of these dots to make it clear to the jury why they're doing so long. I tell you about dog. All right, it's been fun. There's a testimony out there. I'll see you, Michael. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you very much for watching. Jimmy, again, confidential.
Questions about the case, keep sending them our way.
Okay, there was some Karen Reed. There was Karen Reed. And I also got an update for you guys. Like I said, I got a little bit of something for y'all. I got an update on the Noah jailbreak. Allegedly, there's a girlfriend who helped one of the last two escapees, and now she done got arrested. With that being said, let's get into it.
These are Rapid Radios, and I never
is one of the latest people to be arrested for allegedly helping inmates who escaped the New Orleans jail. Her boyfriend is still on the run, and he is a convicted murderer. The other man still on the run right now is potentially still posting about it on social media. This is a picture of who appears to be Antoine Massey, the same man who you might remember from this viral video last week.
They see that I broke out. I didn't break out. I was let out. My name is Antoine Massey.
We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. We are coming up on 1 month since 10 New Orleans inmates escaped the local jail. Right now, these two inmates are still on the run. Derek Groves and Antoine Massey. Groves is awaiting sentencing after being convicted of shooting and killing 2 people on Mardi Gras in 2018. Massey is facing charges of rape, kidnapping, domestic violence, and theft. We'll talk about the latest in the search for those two in just a moment. But let's talk about the more than 12 people who have been arrested for allegedly helping these inmates before and after they escaped. This is a picture of Dariana Burton. She is 28 years old. This is a picture put up by the Louisiana Attorney General announcing her arrest. She's not only the girlfriend of Groves, the convicted killer, she is a former correctional employee. She's accused of giving at least one inmate a ride after the escape back on May 16th when the inmates ripped open a faulty door, broke through a hole in the jail wall, leaving a bit of trash talk for the sheriff saying it was too easy, and then running out the back of the jail to freedom. Police say not only did Burton just show up the night of the jailbreak, they say she had a video call with her boyfriend 2 days before the jailbreak. Apparently talked to her on a jail-issued iPad. Police say Burton held a secondary device up to hers to allow another man to talk to Groves so he could communicate an escape plan. To show how coordinated this jailbreak was, people on the outside allegedly helped several of the inmates escape. Police say on the night of the jailbreak,
Sorry about that. Hope you guys can still hear me. Hate when people interrupt me.
Aaron was captured more than an hour away from New Orleans in Baton Rouge 10 days after the jailbreak on May 26th. Then Aaron was in jail on a charge of second-degree murder. According to WEUE-TV, at least 5 people have been arrested for allegedly helping him in connection to the jailbreak. Now here's another picture from the Louisiana State Police. This is on Van Buren being taken to another facility by helicopter. More than a dozen people have been charged so far in helping the 10 inmates escape. That includes not just family members and girlfriends, but people who were inside this jail. Before we get back to this episode of On the Case, I want to bring you a law and crime legal alert. Did you know that children under the age of 21 are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? And research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to these outcomes. Our partners at Morgan & Morgan, they are stepping in to fight the whole food companies accountable. They have decades of experience fighting large corporations, and they're ready to stand up for families who deserve justice. So, if your child under 21 has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, go to www.forthepeople.com/food. You can also scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description of this video to learn more.
Let me guess, you're thinking about going to therapy, and as a therapist myself, of course I'm going to say that's a great idea.
Sterling Williams was a maintenance worker at the jail. He allegedly turned the water off, allowing the inmates to move that jail toilet without being detected. Antoine Massey threatened to shank him if he didn't turn the water off. Speaking of Massey and a board, he may still be posting on social media as he's on the run. Take a look at this post from an Instagram account, and according to NOLA.com, police are investigating this post as the second potential post that he's created since his escape. Now, this post is under the username _007Chucky with 2 Ys. It's a picture of someone who appears to be Massey. You can see the face tattoos with a caption that says, "My name is Antoine Massey. I'm innocent." Now, if this was in fact done by Massey, this would be the second alleged post that he's made since he escaped the jail in New Orleans. This is the more than 9-minute video posted to the social media.
Oh, my bad, y'all. I didn't know I was still muted.
Now, police raided quickly after that video went viral, and police say that
This here is still an update on the New Orleans jailbreak. Let's get back into it.
Massey was inside the home, but they did find some of the clothes he was wearing in that video.
I'll be
So
back in a second, y'all.
This apparently, though, wasn't the first time that Massey has broken out of jail. WWL TV found that he has an escape record that goes back nearly 20 years, starting in 2007 when he escaped from a juvenile facility. The TV station also says that Massey broke out of the detention center in Texas in 2019, and then in 2023, he cut off an ankle monitor. In response to his social media activity, the Orleans Parish Sheriff put out a statement saying that they are aware of that video and they are urging Massey to come forward. Massey's sister has been arrested and charged with helping Antoine Massey after he escaped. Most of the inmates who are now back in custody did not make it outside Louisiana, except for 2. North of Houston in Texas, 377 miles from New Orleans. Those 2 inmates were Leo Tate and Jermaine Donald. They led police in Huntsville, Texas on a high-speed chase. Eventually, the officers there were able to corner them and took them into custody. Here's body cam video of that capture. Yeah. Police Department put out of those 2 escapees who led them on the chase. Leo Tate and Jermaine Donald. Donald is the man you see in the white shirt. He was in jail on a charge of second-degree murder. Tate's original charge was obstruction of justice. They now both will be facing additional charges, not just for the escape of New Orleans, but for leading police on that chase in Texas. Law enforcement is offering $50,000 as a reward for tips leading to the capture of those final 2 inmates who at the time of this recording are still on the run. Joining us now to talk about the search is retired NYPD detective and co-host of the Gold Shield podcast, Tom Smith. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. We're entering our 4th week since the escape of these 10 inmates. What do you make of 15 people being arrested, all accused of helping these 10 inmates get out of jail?
Yeah, I know. And you know what? We were waiting for that. We were waiting to see who else was going to be involved in this because this isn't an everyday occurrence. And when you're in a penitentiary,
Okay, I'm back.
system like that, you need some insight with scheduling, with access, with all things like that. So. That there was some inside help with this, and you know, it just took a little time to gather them all up.
I think of this sheriff, and she, you know, here you are, you have this very embarrassing situation where the inmates are able to get out, and then you have people like the girlfriend of Derek Rhodes, she used to work at a correctional facility. You have the maintenance man who says that he was threatened to turn off the water. So you have people who are inside your organization accused of helping these inmates escape. What are some of the challenges you see in this particular sheriff's office where it seems like it was a secret to her, but not to multiple people who were close to these inmates in the jail?
Yeah, you need a better vetting system of who you're hiring, and you need better oversight into the jail and who is dealing with who's hanging out with who, whether that's a surveillance system or people on the inside telling you what's going on. But it's pretty obvious that there needs to be more of an oversight into the relationships that are going on in these facilities and corrections officers or people who just work at the facility. If you have a security system set up, that's going to be pretty obvious once you start going over it, of who is always with who and who's hanging out with who. And I'm sure somewhat of that took place when it came to nailing down who was involved in this. And of course, other people talking, which is no secret in the jail system of who's going to give up who.
And Derek Rhodes, he was convicted of a double homicide on Mardi Gras in 2018. He was awaiting sentencing. He apparently had a FaceTime call with her from jail, and he had a prison-issued, jail-issued iPad that he had access to. How common is it for inmates? I mean, he's waiting for sentencing, but he's already been convicted of as serious a crime as you can have, and he has access to electronics inside the jail.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I don't get it. That is just mind-blowing that you're giving inmates the ability to plan something like this. You're having them have conversations or giving them a roadmap with other people on the outside, and you're giving it to them. It's not even that they're hiding it. These technology that's going on is given handed to them. And, wake up. There's no good intentions here. They're not saying goodnight to their loved ones. This is all about what they can do and how they can manipulate the system and get out, which they did. And that has to stop, not only there, but on any level in any facility.
Right, because as much as I know the sheriff's talked about the millions of dollars needed to bring this local jail up to the level that it should be at, you have inmates that are just openly communicating about escape plans with their loved ones on the outside. There's only so much you can do in that case. In your experience, this isn't the first time that we've seen, and particularly talking about Derek Rhodes' girlfriend, this isn't the first time that we've seen someone who's romantically involved with someone who's convicted of a pretty serious crime. How is it that someone gets romantically involved with someone who is going to be in jail, prison for the rest of their lives, and then is still able to be manipulated from the outside? Why is that something that we seem to see more than once?
Yeah, you see it a lot. I mean, you see these relationships blossom even while they're in jail. The celebrity status that some of these individuals have. I mean, Charles Manson had it, and look at his track record. It's an ongoing thing, and it's a phenomenon that you're not going to be able to figure out. Me and you, sure, are not going to figure it out on this show, but it's just this thing. But you know what? Here's the good part of it. When it comes to something like this, they're easily tracked down. So when you have an individual that might have, either has a plan to escape or did escape in this situation, it's easy to follow the breadcrumbs and see who is involved and who their go-tos are, and maybe get a greater idea of the plan and the escape plan.
Now let's talk about the search for, at the time of this recording, there's two left. Derek Rhodes is accused, or convicted, of 2 murders, and then you have Antoine Massey, who has apparently been on social media since his escape. If you're the U.S. Marshals or any of the law enforcement agencies across the South looking for these two right now, how do you do it? You're starting work today.
The good thing about this is, when you're on the run, your resources at some point are going to run out. Not that law enforcement or the U.S. Marshals kind of slow down, but that's going to happen at some point. They're never going to be out-resourced by law enforcement. Money's going to run out, and then you get into desperations. Then you get into criminal activity with burglaries or carjackings, or even shoplifting because you need to change your clothes. You kind of wait for that to happen, but the other thing is that people need to understand, Chris, there's 330 million people in this world, and you're looking for 2. It's not easy, when they're on the run and different ways of getting around. If they get out of a state and into other states, it broadens, what's going on. But I am very confident that in the end, and probably not too much in the future, both of them are going to get apprehended.
This works better than any steroid medications I've been given, any other traditional meds that I've been given in the past.
Too much in the future, both of them are going to get apprehended.
What was your reaction when you saw that Antoine Massey went live on Instagram apparently for 9 minutes? And it was a lot that he had to say. Of course, he's declaring his innocence. He's calling out Donald Trump and looking for people to help him. But here's someone who you would think would be hiding from the spotlight, but he's stepping right into it.
So he wants to be a celebrity. If he hides, no one's going to know who he is. Now, just like everybody else, it's a wow factor, it's a click, it's a following. You just ask, why do people follow these individuals? There you go. That's why. And he tries to, with this, what is he doing? He's trying to get support, and sympathy from people who will help him. And that's what that all is.
Facts.
It's a calling to those like-minded people who will be in a position to help him as a celebrity, as someone that's all over the internet. But, law enforcement, keep talking, because at some point, your luck's going to run out of where you are, or an internet hit, or someone seeing you doing it, and it's going to come to a crashing halt soon.
What's the reality for these inmates that they've been recaptured? They've been taken to what the state says are secure state facilities, but what does life potentially look like for them once they're back in custody?
Or you get rearrested, and you're going to get charges of escape and anything else that may have happened during that time. So you're being rearrested on new charges, and they're going to be tried, and it's just going to be added to whatever sentence they're in. But it is an additional charge, and you're basically being rearrested on escape, and like I said, any other charges that stem from that.
What type of facility, a state facility, what does that potentially look like? And I know you're in New York and we're talking about Louisiana, but to go from where they were, which was, I think, from what I get the sense, a facility that was built to hold people as they're waiting sentencing, or they have a court date coming up, to where they're headed now, which is more a state-run facility.
Yeah, much more security. Like you said, Chris, it's a holding, where they were as a holding facility awaiting trials or awaiting hearings or whatever it may be. Once you are put into more of a state system, the security and the prisons are much more under lock and key, much more surveilled, and a greater oversight into what's going on there. So I don't think this is going to happen again with these individuals because of where they're going to end up.
And I think back to Derek Groves, but there was also people like Lenton Van Buren Jr. He was wanted on second-degree murder. So these are not, people who have minor charges by any means. How is it that, or because I know you can't really answer that question, but just how common is it that you would have people accused of such serious crimes being held in a facility that's in such rough shape as the one that was in New Orleans that they escaped from?
Well, it depends on that state's criminal justice system and how backed up they are, and their court calendars, and when cases are going to get called. So that's going to vary from state to state or city to city, depending on where they're at with trials and hearings and grand juries and all that. And if they're not yet processed or indicted or whatever it might be, they're going to stay in facilities like that because they're going to be waiting for their next step when it comes to their trials.
And when it comes to the search still ongoing, I know the U.S. Marshals are involved. When you bring in the U.S. Marshals, what type of resources do they have that maybe the local sheriff's office doesn't when it comes to tracking down fugitives?
They're the best at it. There's nobody in this country better at it. I worked with a couple of them, on other cases, during my career. They have more resources than anyone, and they have more sources around this country than anybody and any other group or agency. They are the top at it. And that's why I said, sometimes it takes just that misstep that the bad guy's going to make or where they end up, and then they're going to jump on it. But they are the best at it, and make no mistake about it, this guy's not going to be out there for too much longer.
And in the case of Antoine Massey, when he goes on social media, what type of footprint does that leave that the marshals could use in trying to track him down?
all technology, technical databases and footprints and digital footprints of where it was possibly streaming from. And that's what I mean, Chris. Keep talking. Keep going on social media because nothing's untrackable. Nothing. Especially you pick up an electronic device, it is hitting on something somewhere. So that's where if you have an idea of where he may be, and then you start locating and triangulating data points, that's where you're gonna, run into where he is.
Yeah, it's an incredible story because you see this hole in the wall with the trash talk that said too easy to the sheriff, and they were able to pretty quickly get 8 out of 10.
Your butt hurts because you don't have one of these. I mean, if you're driving for hours every single week, you might as well get something that
Quickly get 8 out of 10 inmates, and I just keep going back to this jail and how there were so many, that there were employees. I mean, you have family members that are helping their family members. They're going to have to pay a price for that, but you have employees of the jail. How can these jobs, because they're very difficult jobs, no one probably wakes up saying that they want to go become a maintenance worker at a jail.
And why wasn't nobody on the
How
dock?
can these jobs become more appealing, or how can we make sure that we have the type
Why
of people
was there
that we wanna have
nobody
keep
on the
communities
dock?
safe by watching inmates like people like Derek Rose, who have been convicted of serious crimes, in his case, double murder.
Yeah, you know what, Chris? It's like any other job. Make it more beneficial to the employee. Their pay, their benefits, their hours. All things like that. So a temptation of maybe getting bribed or getting paid or something isn't as easy as this may have been. When you're not getting paid a lot and your rent is coming up or your mortgage is coming up, and you have an opportunity to just maybe, hey, leave a door open.
Like, share, and subscribe, please.
By giving
Thank
more
you.
to the employees and making the job more responsible and more of a kind of law enforcement level than just a maintenance worker or just a corrections officer. Make it something that they're going to look up to and take serious and responsibility for.
Yeah, no, an incredibly good point there because, again, I mean, there's so many people where the right people, it appears, were not working at this jail, along with everything that apparently went wrong for these 10 inmates to escape, and at the time of this recording, 2 of them still at large. Tom Smith, retired NYPD detective. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, Chris. Thanks again.
That will do it for On the Case.
And now I got some Diddy stuff for y'all. This is Diddy Day 20. Shout out to ABC News for this.
Crossface vent. Condition crossface. Crossface encapsulation. Close your vents. Don't close.
I'm Eva Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us. The jury seeing a different side of one of the government's key witnesses in the Sean Diddy Combs trial as she faced cross-examination today. Combs' ex-girlfriend, who is going by the name of Jane, snapping back at the defense late in the day after testifying earlier that she still loves Combs. The defense painted her as a jealous type who couldn't handle the hip-hop mogul's polyamorous lifestyle. Jane was also questioned about a trip she took with Combs to Turks and Caicos and a voice note she sent him. It said, "I had so much fun with you," even though she previously testified she wouldn't have gone if she knew a male escort would show up. Jane also testified about the chemistry between herself, Combs, and a male escort, Paul, saying it was so strong they nicknamed it the trifecta. The trio also allegedly compared themselves to sports stars including Ryan Shaquille O'Neal and Michael Jordan. Combs has denied all allegations and says all the sex was consensual. We'll break down everything that happened in court, but coming up, we'll go one-on-one with the sketch artist who was giving the entire world a glimpse into the high-profile trial of her courtroom drawings. We'll ask her about something Diddy said to her, that she's making him look like a koala bear. There's no cameras allowed in federal court for us to watch and listen to the proceedings for ourselves, but that's where our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Peterson, comes in. Aaron has been in the courtroom for this entire trial. He joins us now live outside the courthouse. And Aaron, this was the 3rd day that Jane has been on the witness stand. Did we learn anything new today?
Well, it was the first day of the cross-examination, and it was sassy and spicy at times. The jury saw long exchanges of text messages where the defense was trying to show that Jane was a willing, maybe even eager participant in the kind of sexual lifestyle that Sean Combs was pushing. And they saw occasions when she would text Sean Combs about nights they could get slutty together, where she's making the arrangements with the male escorts, where she is telling Sean Combs what she wants to do with those male escorts. It was pretty raunchy stuff. Jane says in those moments she was only trying to make Sean Combs happy because she knew that's what he wanted to hear. But it is a different side because on direct examination, Jane said that she did not want any of that to occur. She only wanted to have sex with Sean Combs.
To use your words, Jane at one point got real sassy and spicy with the defense today. Why?
And it came as the defense attorney, Teddy Garagos, was trying to highlight what she had gotten out of the relationship. Because remember, she had said that it made her feel evil, like an animal, like a porn star. She was repulsed. She was disgusted. And then Teddy Garagos says, yeah, but you got a lot of gifts, didn't you? Did you get a Chanel bag? And she looked at her and said, no, I only got trauma. What about a Bottega Veneta bag? And she sort of recoiled at that and said, well, you know what that's like, to the defense attorney. And Teddy Garagos kind of shot back, no, I don't. What's that cost? And that's when Jane looked at her and said, it cost, what does my body cost? And it was a moment where the judge had to remind her to just answer the question, but she showed some fight after a number of hours on cross-examination where she was effectively accused of being in it for the money and the gifts and the 5,300 square foot house in Los Angeles instead of the 1,400 square foot apartment she had been living in before Sean Combs started paying her rent.
Was there anything that stood out to you about the defense's questions to Jane?
Well, I think it was pretty straightforward. And Teddy Garagos actually had a kind of nice rapport. Remember, Jane said that she was meeting with defense attorneys as recently as 2 months ago before she opted to stop communicating with them and testify for the prosecution. So she and Teddy Garagos knew each other. Garagos made a point of saying as much at the outset, and they seemed to have a light banter until that moment where they started talking about luxury handbags, and it got a little more tense, and Jane asked for a break. But I think the whole goal was to show that Jane never really resisted what Sean Combs wanted her to do. She said she didn't want to do it on direct examination, but there she was in text messages talking about getting down and dirty with these male escorts over and over again.
Aaron Katersky for us there at the federal courthouse. Aaron, thank you so much. Let's dig into today's cross-examination of Jane, criminal defense attorney and ABC News legal contributor Bernardo Lola is here to talk us through this. Okay, what stood out to you today?
So let me tell you, in terms of Jane's testimony today, literally it was night and day. Jane became a completely different person. Of course, they always ask, how does a witness do? You don't know how a witness does until they're on cross-examination. So today, the defense was able to flip her by saying, like, making her a defense witness. So we saw her through direct examination. She was crying pretty much like 50% of the time during direct examination, looking down at all times, never looking at the prosecutor when she was asking questions. But here, the defense, when they were cross-examining Jane, completely different story. She was looking directly at the defense attorney, at Teddy, and also she was answering those questions. But they were able to flip her in the sense of getting a whole bunch of yes and no answers and getting to actually agree that Sean Combs was a good man, going at the character, making her a character witness without even calling her on their own case. So in terms of the cross-examination, what really stood out, the one catty moment that Ari just mentioned, because literally it looked like Teddy got under the skin of Jane today, to the point when she mentioned was like, how much does my body cost? Or talking about that bag, I'm sure you have one. Literally all I thought about was like, yeah, cat right here. So she asked for a break. After 20 or 30 minutes, we came back and they ended the cross-examination for the day. But let's go into those text messages, how the defense was able to make Jane their witness on the case. So one of the text messages, I love when we will make love, and said he wanted me. He would say things like he never wanted to leave, and so many loving face. Remember what I said, that the defense was able to make Jane a character witness for Sean Combs. They were able to bring out so many good moments. Like,
And she was even saying today that she still
exactly, like he's not a monster. Like he was a good man. He cared for me. He asked about my feelings and what I needed and how I can help. Like this is the type of man he was. But you know what? The defense had an advantage here. The reason is because remember the defense is paying for her legal fees, but also the defense was able to meet with her multiple times before the trial, so they know what type of witness they were getting and what those answers would be and how to actually approach this witness during cross-examination. So let's go into some more text messages. Text message. We had just done so many hotels and privacy was just starting to become an issue for me. If he got a home that was to his taste level, we could just start doing them here in the privacy of our own home. Again, going to that home, the rent that was being paid by Sean Combs. And now look, he was wanting to give her everything to take care of her. Again, taking away that force, fraud, and coercion away from the prosecution and making it seem like this was all consensual. A huge problem for the defense, for the prosecution.
We also have to talk about this trifecta.
Oh, yes. So this trifecta, this really stung when it came for the prosecution because Jane was actually talking about a specific night, a hotel night, that it was so perfect that it would have warmed her, that it shook her to the core in the sense of how happy she was, that she felt like this was a perfect mix for the three of them, where Jane was the late great Kobe Bryant, where Combs was Michael Jordan, and where Paul, Sean Combs' personal trainer, was shot, and that the chemistry between the three was just amazing. Again, it's not sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion when you have this trifecta that when you're talking about the sex, the hotel nights that they had engaged in.
Bernardo, we got a lot more to talk about.
So much.
We're still ahead. Inside the legal strategies for the prosecution and defense and why who allegedly asked Jane to bring drugs on a plane could be the key to proving the charges against Diddy. We'll be right back. Thanks for streaming with us. Diddy's ex-girlfriend Jane was cross-examined today by the defense. That is expected to take at least a couple more days to finish up. To break down the legal strategies we saw today, we have ABC News legal contributor Shana Wade as the defense and Bernardo Lona back analyzing the prosecution. Shana, let's start with you. In cross, what's the defense trying to do?
So they're directly trying to attack this human trafficking charge. How are they doing that? They are saying the force and coercion is essentially basically this house that she was living in. They immediately attacked that because what they talked about was, why did you get the house?
I'll be
You got
right
the house
back.
because you guys wanted private moments to have these hotel nights and not be in the public eye. This was supposed to be a safe haven for them to happen in. So that's one. Two, they talked about her income. They talked about the fact that she was making $50,000 on Instagram. They talked about the fact that she had 2 brands that she was also promoting and that were profitable to show that she could actually afford her own lifestyle. Therefore, the home can't be held over her head. Then we saw them move into the hotel nights. When we talk about the hotel nights, the drugs, she talked about how she felt great on them, how she had they had wonderful love-making sessions. Then they moved into this idea that she actually had much more control over these escorts. She chose the escorts. She had the ground rules for the escorts. They couldn't do drugs, and she has to choose them. And so they were really breaking that down to say that she was a willing participant, saying that she wanted to participate in these slutty nights and that she wanted to invite them over and buy a movie projector so they could re-watch these events. So that's really what they were doing. And the last thing that they did that was phenomenal was they got under her skin. This whole idea that she and Sean Combs had this physical altercation, we saw that spice in her. We saw the ability to get very kind of attitude and temper. And that's what they wanted to do because they wanted her not to appear as demure. And I think they succeeded today.
Bernardo, was this damaging?
It was a bit damaging. However, remember that the prosecution is going to be able to come back on redirect. But also, you have to remember that the Jane that you're seeing today is not the Jane that was in these hotels in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Here was 2025, and she's in therapy now. She's talking to a therapist. Like, she's now understanding that how Sean Combs had manipulated and had control over her, and that she wasn't able to say no. So in terms of, is it working? When it comes to prosecutors and putting on witnesses, you take your witnesses as you get them. You take your victims as you get them. So yes, they all have baggage. Jane has baggage. Cassie had baggage. Every witness who stepped forward had some kind of baggage. And you're not trying to clean it up for the jury. So you're going to present to the jury at the end like, look, this is who Jane is. This is exactly who Sean Combs preyed upon because of who she is and who she was during those years. So they'll be able to explain it. It's going to come down to closing arguments, of course, and they're going to be able to do it during cross-examination.
But I think although even though they're going to rehabilitate her, as Bernarda said, the problem with it is that she's looking back. Hindsight is 2020. She even admitted that although she's in therapy now and realizes that she should have vocalized the parts she didn't want to participate in, she also has already acquiesced that she did want to participate. She did not want him to, in his attention and his affections, to turn elsewhere.
What the problem is that the defense, the problem that they have is that there's strength in numbers. So if you put Jane and also Cassie together, you have that pattern. Had this been a case just about Cassie or a case just about Jane, then yes, the defense will have a stronger case. There would be reasonable doubt. But because they put both of them together, you have the sprinkle of Mia there and Alfana there and of the other witnesses, it's a different story for the defense.
When you talk about the victims, the alleged victims in this case, you have two of them. Some of their stories are the same, some of them are different. What are you hoping that the jury, as the prosecutor, what are you hoping the jury takes away from that?
So what the prosecution is trying to do, and this is why they bring that racketeering conspiracy, this is why the feds love that charge, because you're able to bring in so many bad acts, you're able to bring in that pattern, you're able to look back years ago, 10 years in the past, and bring all these bad acts that the defendant allegedly engaged in. So the prosecution is hoping that the jury sees that, look, Jane's story, well, you know, I kind of believe it because Cassie has a similar story. Cassie, I believe her because Jane also has a similar story. Like, this is not something that's being made up. They corroborate each other. Two women that don't know each other giving the same story, to the point that even during our examination yesterday, Jane said when she read Cassie's lawsuit, 3 of those pages were like she was reading her own story. It was identical to what she went through.
Shannon, who do you think, does the defense need to call any witnesses? Do you think they're going to put on a case? Absolutely, they're going to put on a case because what you really have is that you have someone who we've already established has done these reprehensible acts. Some of the things that the jury is going to be inflamed about, he's not on trial for, and that's what is really important about this. His sexual preferences and what he liked is not what's on trial. Whether what happened in the elevator shaft is not on trial. So what you're really looking at is the RICO and breaking that down. So they are going to bring witnesses. I expect to see someone either that was a supporting staff, a personal assistant, a bodyguard to speak to the fact that although they were present, they were not aware, and that is something else the defense got out on the stand today, is that they did not and were not aware of what was happening at these hotel nights or the freak-offs.
Bernarda, thank you both for being with us. Coming up, you see the trial through her eyes and sketches. The artist behind our view of the proceedings tells us how this trial compares to other high-profile cases and what did he complain to her about. That's next.
Coffee fans, you're gonna want to check this out. Bones Coffee Company just released their new Star Wars inspired coffee collection. Dark side chocolate truffle, twin sun tiramisu, and Willingham. You can get your coffee with these special edition hand-throw mugs. Check out the entire Star Wars inspired coffee collection at bonescoffee.com.
The Cloudlifter was born out of the mic. It was literally the active circuit in the mic when we prototyped it in Mathons. That was the birth of the Cloudlifter, but the mic was first. And we wanted a circuit that was going to be worthy of the ribbon mic. We pushed ourselves and we achieved that with the Cloudlifter fortunately. When the Cloudlifter came out, it just kind of started opening it up for a lot of younger generations to interface in home studios. Maybe they don't have like the boutique preamp, a great preamp, still might only have 60, 65 dBm musical gain, where you put that Cloudlifter in, the way the Cloudlifter is designed, it's like literally a mod new preamp, doesn't have capacitors in it, so it literally throws a gain stage out there, but electrically, it's electrically part of the preamp. All the like condenser mics, they all have capacitors in their network. Our patented technology removes all that. It's so much more of the actual mic itself, but it all came from just trying to make the ribbon mics workable with modern equipment.
Sorry, I had to go get food. DoorDash.
Welcome back to Burden of Proof, the case against me. We are in the 5th week of testimony in the trial against Sean Diddy Combs, and because it is a federal trial, there are no cameras in court. A sketch artist, Jane Rosenberg, has been there each and every day, providing us with her vantage point court sketches from the courtroom. She's no stranger to high-profile cases, sketching the likes of President Trump, Luigi Mangione, Bill Cosby, and Ghislaine Maxwell, all during their court appearances. And Jane joins us now from outside the courthouse. Thank you so much for being with us. You provided the sketches from the courtroom for Combs' criminal trial in 2001. Besides the 20-plus years, what's the difference between them then and now?
Year, and he looks a little bit older. Other than that, I don't think he looks that much different. I did look at my old sketches. I was surprised that I couldn't remember what he looked like. So before I did the trial, I looked at those. Yeah.
Last week, Combs actually came up to you and told you that your sketches of him made him look like a koala bear. How did you respond to that?
Oh, I didn't really respond. I just wrote down his words so I remember them, because sometimes I forget what people say when I'm busy working. So I thought that was interesting. I had to, when I got out of the room, I actually Googled what a koala bear looks like so that I saw a little white goatee, so maybe that's what he was talking about. And I did ride the elevator down with the family. They're very appreciative of my sketches and it made me feel good. But I told him, he told me I made him look like a koala bear, and they all just giggled, and then the elevator door opened and I got out.
I'm curious, how did you become the sketch artist for some of New York's top cases?
That goes back to the history of how I became a sketch artist in the first place, because I've been doing it 45 years, and I saw a courtroom artist a long time ago to a lecture at the Society of Illustrators, and I thought, I want to do this. So I started coming to court at 100 Center Street where the Trump trial was, and I asked the court officers, where did the artists sit? What are they doing? I asked so many questions. They said, come next week, we'll let you sit with the media. And there were 2 other artists, and one had Fox on the portfolio, and I didn't know who the other one was, so I called the startup company. And back then it was CNN, they were just a startup company. So they said, we had somebody. So then I had to call one of the big 3. I called NBC, they said, come on in, let's see what you've got. I went to 30 Rock, and they used my sketches. I called my parents, I was very excited. And that's how it started. So now, there were a lot more courtroom artists back in when I started. But now, with all these new stations, cable stations, bloggers, there's too many. If everybody had their own artists, there would not be enough space in the courtroom. So I guess I'm one of the main artists that are still around.
I've watched courtroom artists sketch out during trials. It's so fascinating to watch. When you start to begin your drawing, what do you look for to begin it, and what's the concept behind them?
What I look for, I look at what's going on today in the courtroom. If somebody's, in the morning, usually I'll see Diddy speaking with his lawyers, they have conferences, or maybe he's throwing kisses or hearts to his family. I'll often try to do a morning sketch of that, which I can't usually finish in the morning, but I'll finish it later on, because I just don't have that much time in the morning before a witness gets on the stand. Once a witness is on the stand, I have to draw the witness, capture a likeness, although the sex victims are not allowed to draw their facial features. I can draw their hair and clothing, but no facial features, which is why you see these weird blank faces. So I look at what's going on. If something out of the ordinary happens, a week ago, somebody jumped up in the back of the courtroom and screaming out, and the judge said, get her out of here, and the guards almost tackled her and dragged her out of the courtroom, and that was something for me to draw. I had to immediately start getting that done, get it out. So that's how it goes. I look at what's going on and I make a decision.
Do you get nervous doing these sketches?
I don't think so. I don't think I'm nervous. I don't days I was very nervous coming to court. I had a knot in my stomach. Now I figured we'll just use what I give you. Maybe I'm a little better than I was back then, too.
Jane Rosenberg, thank you so much for being with us and for the sketches that we all get to see of what's happening there in the courtroom. It's time now to see what people are searching online after the latest day of testimony in this high-profile criminal trial. The latest searches range from Bottega Bag Price to who is Perry Mason? To break it all down for us is ABC News contributor Kelly Carter. She covers entertainment and pop culture for us.
Okay, they ain't talking about no more.
Bottega Bag Price.
Okay, I have just one last thing. This here is it's about Lori Vallow Daybell, and this is Lori Vallow Daybell cross-examines a lead with the lead detective in her attempted murder. Y'all, this right here is crazy. But with that being said, let's get into it. And shout out to Law and Crime for this. Let's go.
Who has seen a print method that has such traction, such momentum in such a short amount of time, like we have seen or are seeing with direct-to-film? I didn't think so. On this channel alone, we've discussed.
And what color did Mr. Boudreaux say the Jeep was when he was with Officer Marianne Robb?
Lori Vallow Daybell, cross-examining the lead detective in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux.
So did you not think it would be a good idea to do whatever kind of testing you could find out what kind of gun this was?
I take a look at his testimony and how court was delayed as the second week of the Doomsday Cult Mob's last trial begins.
We talked about gas, and we talked about
dang
we
it.
talked about
I did not mean to
we
do that.
talked about electric
Y'all, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to do that. Let's start this over again.
And
There we
what color
go.
did Mr. Boudreaux say the Jeep was when he was with Officer Marianne Robb?
Lori Vallow Daybell, cross-examining the lead detective in the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux.
So did you not think it would be a good idea to do whatever kind of testing you could find out what kind of gun this was?
I take a look at his testimony and how court was delayed as the second week of the Doomsday Cult Mob's last trial begins. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fixes. Hey there, before I get into the very latest on Lori Vallow's trial, I have something for all of our viewers who love camp videos and police content. You're gonna love it. On Patrol Live is now on YouTube. If you've never seen On Patrol Live, you are really missing out on some of the most wild and real police action out there. They follow police departments across the country every weekend with photographers riding along with police officers. There's no body cams involved. This is real, in-your-face law enforcement caught on camera live in the moment. Now they're partnering with Law and Crime to bring their unique content to YouTube. So head over to On Patrol Live's channel and subscribe to make sure you don't miss the action starting on Monday, June 16th. You can find that channel link in the description. Now back to the second week of Lori Vallow Daybell's trial in Arizona. Week 2 is in full swing after...
God damn it. Hold on. Here we go.
Now back to the second week of Lori Vallow Daybell's trial in Arizona. Week 2 is in full swing after a drama-filled first week. This is Lori's final trial. She's accused of conspiring with her late brother, Alex Cox, to murder Brandon Boudreaux, the ex-husband of her niece, Melanie Boudreaux-Pulowski. Prosecutors in Maricopa County, Arizona, say Alex Cox drove Lori's Jeep Wrangler to Arizona from Idaho in October of 2019 and took a shot at Brandon outside of his rental home, and that the only person who knew the address to that home was Melanie. Brandon testified about the shooting last week.
When you were coming in
Be right back, y'all.
and sort of slowing down
What do you see happen?
So as I let the car kind of coast in, the back window pops up. I see a muzzle. I hear a bang. And you know your fight or flight kicks in at that point. So for me, I just immediately thought, my window shattered. All that happened, like the snap of a finger. And so I just immediately thought someone's shooting at me because I saw a muzzle. So I hit the accelerator and I just went straight at it. I no longer was planning on turning into my driveway to let the garage door trigger.
And then, of course, Lori did not miss her chance to cross-examine Brandon.
But I was not the focus of that entire argument, is that correct?
My focus was my family, my wife, and my children. I love them, and I didn't want them to go through pain.
Is that what you spent all those hours arguing?
Yeah, because I love them and I wanted to work through things with my wife, yes. I didn't spend it for any other reason.
And during this argument, there were several issues that you discussed, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And one of those issues was Melanie informing you of text messages that she had viewed?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Is one of those issues a video of you on Facebook dancing at the pink pony that Melanie showed you?
To relevance, to 404, the evidence, and 403.
Sustain.
Huh?
Did Melanie show you a video of yourself during that
To the same
argument?
manner.
You told Detective Pillar that that someone had convinced Melanie that you were gay.
I can't remember if I specifically told him that someone convinced Melanie that I was gay. I would have to review the conversation I had with him to be able to say for sure that's how it would.
Okay. Do you recall telling him that she has a friend named Lori? Melanie?
I did not say she has a friend named Lori.
No, you didn't. Would you like to review would you like to look at your interview?
I
To refresh your recollection?
I said she has an aunt named Lori.
Would you like to review this to refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Okay.
Hey, I want to tell you about a free app that I've tried. It's called Upside, and it will give you cash back on things you use every day, like gas, groceries, and takeout. You can transfer the cash you get back straight into your bank account. That's what's great about it. When I pump gas or I go to Dunkin' for a drink, I use Upside. I've even used it when I order pizza. Here's how it works. Download Upside, claim an offer, and pay as usual using a debit or credit card. Follow the steps and get paid. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan that QR code on your screen and use our promo code CrimeFix to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's promo code CrimeFix for an extra 25 cents back on your first gallon of gas. So Lori was asking Brandon a lot of questions where it sounded like she was trying to get Brandon to say, hey, she was a good person, I really liked her. That led to Lori getting booted out of the courtroom by Judge Boreski. Take a look.
State, the defendant, and the advisory council were at the bench. We had that short opinion, 1 minute sidebar, but I don't know if anyone wants to supplement the record on that. Yes, okay.
Just Your Honor, that again, the state did raise any issue of character evidence under 404A and 405, that if the defendant opens the door and tries to advise that she is a good person, a peaceful person, a kind person, a loving person, any of those other types of things that would allow us under 405 to then bring in specific acts, such as the murder of her children, her husband, and her current husband's wife.
All right.
Which would also be 404B that they went through. That would be 405.
No, they went through it, but if you bring up 404, then you...
And all 404B is in, or do we get a hearing on what 404B can come in? If I open the door, do I get a hearing? We stop trial, and I get a hearing on...
Stop. We'll have a very short hearing, okay? If you're going to introduce how you have great character and good character, we're going to show evidence that they can bring in to rebut that character.
Talk to me that way. I'm very curious.
These are the day trip lunch boxes, lunch bag, and tote. They come in 4 sizes and are built with similar materials to whitewater wraps, so they can handle the days far from the fridge. The wide opening design makes it easy to access your food and leaves enough space that a common kid. Inside, our proprietary insulation, Cold Cell Flex Foam, offers superior, flexible, lightweight temperature retention. The Day Trip family, compatible with Yeti ice sheets and food storage, is a perfect option to keep your food fresh all day.
Don't shower again until you've seen the disgusting truth about your water pipes. This dermatologist from New York just discovered how to transform your skin. And big water filter companies are furious. She created a device that purifies your shower water, making your skin softer and your hair shinier in just a few showers. Plus, it cuts your water bill by 30%. At this rate, everyone in America will have one of these by 2025. Dr. Emily Hart, a well-known dermatologist and mother of 2, noticed something strange one morning. Even though she showered every day, she still felt dirty. Her skin was dry, her hair looked dull, and her shower was always moldy. However, a vacation in Switzerland brought a surprising change. In just 1 week, her skin started looking fantastic again, and her hair got shiny. When she got back to New York, Dr. Hart figured out that the big difference was the water. Switzerland is known for having the cleanest tap water, while the U.S. struggles with tap water pollutants like chlorine, fluoride, metals, and microbes. These things mess with our skin and hair every time we shower or wash our faces, making our skin dry, our hair frizzy, and our showers dirty.
I'm very courteous to you.
No, you have been nothing but near courteous to me during the course of these proceedings. Talk with your advisory council about the rest of your cross. We're going to resume in 15 minutes.
So big time drama, big time drama. Then the cross-examination by Lori of Brandon resumed.
Brandon, how many patients since October 2nd until now have you had with Detective Pillar?
I have no idea.
How many phone calls would you say over the last 5.5 years?
No idea.
More than 10?
I'm sure more than 10, yes.
More than 20?
Like I said, I couldn't testify to the exact number, and so I have no idea.
What was the point of this line of questioning?
I talked to him about my case.
More than 100?
I honestly can't tell you. I have never looked to try and figure it out.
Okay. How about text message communications with you and Detective Pillar? How many times have you communicated with him through text message in the last 5.5 years?
I've never counted it, so I don't know.
More than 10?
I'm sure it's more than 10.
More than 100?
That I can't testify to. I don't know.
How about emails to Detective Pillar? How many email communications have you had with him in the last 5 years?
I can't testify. I don't know.
More than 10?
That I'm not sure. I couldn't even tell you if I ever had more than 10.
I spoke with Drop Dead Serious podcast producer Lindsay Howler, who was in the courtroom for Brandon Boudreaux's testimony. But what I found interesting, Lori is basically trying to say that he staged his own shooting. That's what she basically suggested in her opening. Like, he has a gun, and he said this stuff on the 911 call, and he's trying to, frame Melanie for this and frame her. I mean, that was what I got from her opening statement. So, what did you make of Brandon's testimony, and how was the jury reacting to it? So the jury was very attentive. They were listening along. Brandon has a compelling story. He went through everything, and he's a very credible witness. And you could tell it was emotional for him to even recount those things. He was truly scared for his life. As far as Lori saying that Brandon stayed and his private investigators, made up this huge conspiracy, just blamed Lori. Obviously, that really has no basis in fact.
No merit.
We'll see. It's also interesting. We're hearing a lot more about Brandon's ex-wife, Melanie now Pulowski, who is Lori's niece, and they really have more of a mother-daughter relationship, so it's going to be really interesting to see how that pans out as well. Yeah, because she's a co-conspirator. However, she's not been charged. And I kind of, there's a lot there. So there's a lot of smoke. So I'm kind of smoke, and that's been a question that's been on everyone's mind for years now. Especially after Chad's trial, Chad Daybell back in April and May of 2024, we actually heard some recorded phone calls that Melanie's now husband, Ian Pulowski, recorded of Melanie speaking to Lori and Chad, where they're very much in sync with this. Rexburg is the New Jerusalem. We're here. Detective Hermosillo is dark. He won't let up. They want to find the kids. So it was pretty damning. And now we're seeing Melanie brought up in this case, and she seems to be the one that would have the motive, although, like you said, she is not charged. Again, Melanie Pulowski has not been charged with any crime, but she has been called a co-conspirator. Now we're in week 2, and we're getting into the evidence. Jurors have seen photos of the Jeep. The lead agent for the shooting, police officer Ryan Pillar, took the stand last Friday and told the jury about his encounter with the victim, Brandon Boudreaux.
When we say your balance, your way, that's exactly what we mean. 100% configure them.
This Friday and told the jury about his encounter with the victim, Brandon Boudreaux.
This interview with Brandon Boudreaux, did you talk to him about who he thought might want to kill him?
Yes.
And did Brandon provide you with the names of some people he thought might want to kill him?
He did.
And what names did he provide to you?
He provided the names of Lori Vallow and the name of Alex Cox.
Did he advise you that there had been an incident that occurred in Chandler in July of 2019, and that was some of the reason for him identifying them?
Yes.
During your interview with Brandon, let me ask you this, prior to talking with Brandon, when you were briefed, did you receive information regarding the vehicle that had been identified by Brandon as being used that shot at him?
Yes, I was provided a description of the vehicle that shot at him, or where the shot came from.
When you spoke with Brandon in your car, was he consistent with giving you the same information?
Yes.
Did he describe the Jeep for you?
He did.
Did he provide you the information about what state the license plate was from?
Yes.
Did he talk to you about whether or not it had a rear tire on it?
He did.
Did he talk to you about where it was parked?
He did.
Did he talk to you about what he saw happen right before the shooting?
Yes.
Was anything that he had provided to you different than what you had learned in the briefing as to that area?
No.
While on the stand, Officer Pillar elaborates more on the findings of the investigation and the whereabouts of their number one suspect, Lori Vallow.
Did you learn during this investigation that Lori Vallow had moved to Rexburg, Idaho?
Yes.
Did you learn in this investigation that Alex Cox had moved to Idaho?
Yes.
So in October then, Melanie joined them in Idaho?
Yes.
On October 16th, did you learn that a license plate reader had recorded Lori Vallow's Jeep with that Texas plate LWD 0997 on I-40 on October 1st of 2019?
Yes.
Was that reader located in Holbrook, Arizona?
Yes.
How long before the shooting of Brandon was Lori Vallow's Jeep seen on that I-40 heading towards Phoenix?
That Jeep was seen on the I-40 heading towards Phoenix approximately 26 hours, 30 minutes prior to the shooting at Brandon Boudreaux.
Now, there was a break in Detective Pillar's testimony. Other witnesses took the stand, including a man who testified that he put tint on the windows of Lori's Jeep for Alex Cox. Detective Pillar's testimony then picked up Monday, and Lori got to cross-examine him.
And what color did Mr. Boudreaux say the Jeep was when he was with Officer Marianne Robb?
When he was with Officer Robb, he described it as a green colored Jeep.
And what was the color of the Jeep that was seen by witnesses in the neighborhood?
It's referred to as different colors. What I surmised it to be was a darker colored Jeep Wrangler.
So did you hear dark blue?
I do not remember specifically hearing dark blue, but I know that color has been brought up.
And is it your understanding that the color that Brandon pulled up on his phone to show the officers was camo green? Is that correct?
That's what was discussed by Officer Robb, but I was not privy to that actual conversation, and there was no supplement that I saw that indicated that.
So as the case agent, you did not watch the body cam with Officer Robb?
I watched all body-worn camera from this case.
The body camera video seems to be very, very important to Lori, along with the different descriptions of the color of the Jeep by witnesses.
And so in the body cam, you did not see him actually show it to Officer Robb and Officer Bullock that were standing there?
Not that I recall, but again, I watched many hours of body-worn camera footage, but I do not recall that specifically. No, I do not.
Would you like to see it to refresh your recollection?
If we want to take the time to watch that. But I'm also not disagreeing that it very well may have been said or shown to be a camo green.
So when is the first time you wrote in all of your reports that it was a gray Jeep? So where did you glean that information that the Jeep was gray?
The gray Jeep came about from my contact with the Chandler Police Department on October 9th.
So Brandon never told you it was a gray Jeep, is that correct?
I do not recall him ever describing it in the initial contacts as a gray Jeep, no.
And have the neighbors ever called it a gray Jeep also, is that correct?
Not to me, no.
Okay.
Then Lori questioned Detective Pillar about the trajectory, or at least his opinion of the trajectory of the bullet. That's the angle from which it would have been fired.
In your estimation, Detective Pillar, how far was the Jeep's when the supposed shot was taken?
With the information provided by Mr. Boudreaux and the neighbors describing where this Jeep was located, where I believe, at least at the time, where that glass shard might be related in the roadway, I would guess. I don't want to guess because we didn't measure, and I don't know exactly where the individual was in the Jeep. What I can say is it was within a few feet. And when I say a few feet, I'm going to say about 10 to 20 feet of a vehicle approaching where the projectile hit the Tesla.
Okay, and why were no measurements taken?
We didn't know exactly where that Jeep was located. We had an idea where it was parked, but we didn't have an exact location for that Jeep, a specific spot.
If it was parked nose to nose with that white van, you kind of know exactly where it was parked.
We have a good idea where it was at, absolutely.
But no measurements were taken.
No measurements, no map.
And what measures were taken to decide the trajectory?
I don't know how to answer that question.
Okay, did the Gilbert Police Department ever decide on what the trajectory actually was?
No.
So were there tests done to find the trajectory?
No, because again, we don't have the exact placement, the height, the angle in which the projectile came from, and we can't determine that with just the hole and the Tesla that was since moved prior to police arrival.
Then Lori push Detective Pillar a little more on the topic. She also seemed annoyed that he didn't have an answer.
What was your determination of what kind of bullet would make a hole that large?
I don't have any ammunition training or certifications to provide that answer accurately.
But from your own shooting experience, would you have thought that was a rifle or a handgun?
In my experience and training, again, I don't have it in trajectory or what particular bullets will do. What I do know is there's dozens of styles of bullets, whether it be a hollow point, full metal jacket, a frangible piece of ammunition. There's dozens of types of ammunition that are made, both of which can be utilized by a handgun or a rifle. The information I was provided, at least it seems that a rifle was the most reasonable weapon that was utilized to shoot at Mr. Boudreaux's car, but to give an answer for the type of ammunition, whether it be coming from a specific weapon, I cannot answer that.
Okay. And you're the case agent, is that correct?
Yes.
This is your investigation, is that correct?
Yes.
So did you not think it would be a good idea to do whatever kind of testing you could find out what kind of gun this was?
There would be no way to find out what kind of gun this was.
There's no way to determine if it was a rifle versus a handgun?
No.
There's no way to determine whether it was taken from 30 feet or 10 feet?
No.
There's no way to determine if it was going up or going down?
No.
There's no way to determine if it was going left or it was going right?
There's evidence to show that it was going eastbound while the vehicle was traveling westbound.
Now, Lori sort of suggested in her opening statement that either Melanie might have had something to do with this, or that Brandon could have staged the shooting since he owned guns. Then Lori's line of questioning turned to gunshot residue testing.
So, having been a case agent hundreds of times,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure you've dealt with lots of gunshots, is that correct?
Not all cases were related to gunshots or homicides, but I have investigated other shootings and other violent crimes.
Have you ever swabbed someone's hands for gunshot residue?
Swabbed? No. Collected GSR? Yes.
From someone's hands?
Yeah, you don't swap for
Typical,
GSR.
right?
You don't swap for
gun
GSR.
case
What they
where a
do,
gun
they
has
put a
been fired.
light to you.
Typical? I don't know if that's an appropriate word. Is it a tool or a evidence collection technique that can be utilized? Absolutely.
Okay. And so you're not aware that antimony, barium, and lead, all three have to be together for it to be gunshot residue?
Jack, again, there's an expert that testified to
It's
this.
sustained. He said he doesn't know this.
Okay.
She also questioned Detective Pillar about his interactions with Brandon Boudreaux's private investigator.
Detective Pillar, did you ever receive any information from Rich Robertson, the private detective Brandon Boudreaux hired?
I did not.
Did you ever speak to him personally?
Victor may have had a phone call early on, essentially explaining that he was going to do a PI thing, and we understood that there's certain legalities when it comes to criminal investigation over a civil investigation.
When you say early on, when do you mean specifically?
I couldn't give you a date, but I believe I had a phone conversation with him, but it was not lengthy, and I don't remember communicating much after that, if at all.
So in October, just after October 2nd?
Yeah, that's beyond after October 2nd, 2019.
And was it your understanding from that conversation that Brandon hired him to track Melanie?
I have checked, Your Honor.
Sustained. Sustained.
What is the legal objection?
Well, which calls for hearsay is not relevance, and it also could open the door to something.
So you did not email with him or text with him, Rich Robertson?
No. that I remember.
Okay. Did Brandon ever convey that he was frustrated with the way the investigation was going?
I'm gonna object to hearsay relevance.
Sustained.
But one point Lori really seemed interested in was how many times her license plate was picked up in Arizona around the time of the shooting.
You said one was in Holbrook.
One was in Holbrook. That's the one that's, I know, is presented. The other ones I do not have independent recollection of. They are documented in the police report.
So you don't have any documented in Gilbert, is that correct?
There were no LPR hits in Gilbert, I can tell you that.
None in Mesa?
None in Mesa.
None in Phoenix?
Not that I can recall.
None in Scottsdale?
None in Scottsdale.
None in Tempe?
None in local cities. They were all highway cameras that were involved in this.
Now, where Lori Valadeva is going with all of this, we'll find out in her closing argument, but she's saying she had nothing to do with this. In the end, the jury will have the final say. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.
And with that being said, that's all I have for you guys tonight. Have a blessed night. See y'all later.